The insistent buzz of the 6:30 a.m. alarm was a mere formality. Emily Carter had been staring at her ceiling for the better part of an hour, her heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. This was no ordinary Tuesday in the life of the 35-year-old journalist. This was the day that was supposed to validate every grueling late night, every sacrificed weekend, every ounce of her relentless drive. Emily met her own gaze in the bedroom mirror, smoothing the lapels of the navy blue blazer she'd meticulously chosen the night before. Her green eyes, usually alive with curiosity, were now shadowed by an intense, unwavering determination. She inhaled deeply, trying to quell the tremor in her hands. "You're ready for this, Emily," she whispered to her reflection. "You were born for this." The drive to the downtown offices of the Gotham Gazette, the city's most influential newspaper, was accompanied by a rare, nervous smile. Today's 9 a.m. meeting was more than just a calendar entry. It was the turning point she had fought for. After 12 years of dogged dedication, rising from a wide-eyed intern to a star senior reporter, Emily Carter was on the cusp of being named Deputy Editor-in-Chief. It was the crucial step that would set her on a direct path to one day running the entire publication. Traffic moved with an unusual fluidity that Tuesday morning, as if the universe itself was clearing a path for her. The clock on her dashboard read 8:15. She had more than enough time to arrive, go over her notes one last time, and maybe even grab a coffee to settle her jittery nerves. That was the exact moment fate chose to rewrite her script. At the corner of Elm Street and Main Street, just a few blocks from the Gazette building, a scene unfolded that made her blood run cold. A little girl, no older than 6, with blonde pigtails tied in neat bows, was stepping off the curb into traffic. The light was still green for cars, and a black SUV was barreling toward the intersection. Time seemed to warp and slow down. Emily saw it all with horrifying clarity. The SUV's driver, his face illuminated by the glow of his phone. The little girl's innocent, carefree gaze fixed on a single red balloon dancing in the breeze on the other side of the street, and the violent, inevitable collision that was milliseconds away. Without a second thought, Emily slammed on the brakes, her car swerving sharply to the side as she threw it into park and leaped out. Her heels clacked on the asphalt as she sprinted toward the child. "Look out!" Emily shouted, her voice a sharp crack in the morning air. The girl turned, her expression one of confusion. The SUV was now just feet away. In a desperate, fluid motion, Emily lunged forward, scooping the child into her arms and rolling with her onto the hard sidewalk. The SUV rocketed past, its horn blaring furiously. For a beat, an eerie silence fell, then reality crashed back in a chaotic wave of sounds and sensations. Emily felt the rough grit of the concrete under her palms, heard the panicked cries of bystanders, and registered the trembling weight of the little girl in her arms. "Are you okay?" Emily asked, pulling back slightly to check the child for injuries. The girl, her blue eyes wide with fright, gave a slow, shaky nod. "My balloon," she murmured, pointing a small finger toward the sky where the red speck was drifting away. A wave of profound relief washed over Emily, and she couldn't help but let out a small laugh. "I'm sure we can get you another balloon." "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," the girl answered shyly. "Well, Lily, you gave us all a big scare. Where's your mom?" As Emily scanned the growing crowd, searching for the face of a frantic parent, her eyes caught her watch. 8:55. The reality of the time hit her like a physical blow. Her meeting, her promotion. For a fleeting, agonizing moment, Emily was torn between two worlds. On one side was the culmination of 12 years of relentless ambition. On the other was a terrified little girl who needed an adult. In the end, it wasn't a difficult choice at all. "Let's find your mom, Lily," Emily said, getting to her feet and holding out a hand to the child. "And then, how about we go buy you a new balloon?" As they walked hand in hand along the sidewalk, away from the scene, Emily knew she had missed her chance. Years of hard work, sleepless nights, all sacrificed in an instant. But as she looked down at Lily, whose small face was still pale from the scare, she couldn't summon a single ounce of regret. What she couldn't possibly know, as she walked away from the near tragedy, was that this moment of sacrifice wasn't the end of her professional journey. It was just the beginning. A beginning that would lead her to places she had never imagined, facing challenges that would test not just her skill as a journalist, but the very core of her integrity as a human being. The day that was supposed to mark the pinnacle of her career had just become the day that would redefine her life forever. And while the Gotham Gazette started its pivotal meeting without her, Emily Carter was about to embark on the biggest story of her life. A story in which she would be not just the narrator, but the protagonist. The emergency department at County General Hospital pulsed with the frantic, organized chaos typical of a Tuesday morning. Emily Carter sat in a hard, uncomfortable plastic chair, her navy blue blazer now wrinkled and smudged with dust from the sidewalk. Next to her, Lily swung her short legs, her blue eyes taking in the bustling environment with a child's curiosity. "Does anything hurt, Lily?" Emily asked for the third time in the last 10 minutes. The girl shook her head, her pigtails bouncing. "No, but I'm hungry, and I want my mom." Emily managed a gentle smile, trying to conceal her own mounting anxiety. "I know, sweetheart. We'll find your mom soon, I promise." As they waited to be called, her gaze kept drifting to the clock on the wall. 9:30. The career-defining meeting had started half an hour ago. Her phone felt like a lead weight in her pocket, a constant, heavy reminder of the choice she had made. With a deep sigh, Emily pulled it out and dialed her boss's number. Each ring was a hammer blow against her ribs. "Richard, where the hell are you?" Richard's voice thundered over the line. "Richard, There was an accident. I'm at the hospital." "The hospital? Are you okay?" The concern in his voice was palpable, but it was quickly eclipsed by a wave of sharp frustration. "Emily, this meeting is crucial. The entire board is here." Emily closed her eyes, feeling the full weight of her decision pressing down on her. "I know, Richard. Believe me, I know, but I couldn't just... There's a child here who needed help." A long, heavy silence stretched across the line. When Richard finally spoke again, his voice was cold and detached. All business. "I see. Well, I guess we'll have to reconsider some things. We'll talk when you get back to the office." The call ended abruptly, leaving Emily with a tight lump in her throat. She looked at Lily, who was now absently fiddling with the hem of her dress. The stark reality of what had just happened washed over her. 12 years. 12 years of relentless work, of personal sacrifices, of relationships pushed to the back burner, all for the dream of one day leading the Gotham Gazette. And now, in a matter of minutes, that dream had seemingly evaporated. "Miss Carter?" A voice snapped her out of her spiraling thoughts. A nurse offered her a kind smile. "We can see Lily now." The checkup was brief and, thankfully, revealed no injuries beyond a few superficial scrapes. As the nurse applied a colorful bandage to Lily's knee, Emily couldn't help but reflect on the fragility of life, on how everything could be upended in an instant. Back in the waiting room, Emily found herself at an emotional crossroads. Part of her wanted to bolt from the hospital, race back to the newspaper, and beg for another chance to explain the extraordinary circumstances. But another part of her, a part she hadn't known existed until that morning, felt a strange sense of peace, as if for the first time in years she had done something truly, profoundly significant. "Emily?" Lily's small voice brought her back to the present. "Are you a superhero?" The question caught Emily completely by surprise, making her laugh. "No, sweetheart, I'm just a journalist. But you saved me, like a superhero." Lily's innocent words struck Emily with an unexpected force. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. "Sometimes," she said softly, "doing the right thing is the real superpower." At that very moment, the emergency room doors swung open dramatically. A woman of about 40, with disheveled blonde hair and eyes red from crying, burst in. "Lily!" she shouted, her gaze frantically scanning the room. "Mommy!" Lily scrambled off the chair and ran into her mother's open, desperate arms. Emily watched the emotional reunion, feeling a mixture of relief and a pang of something else. Longing, perhaps, for that kind of deep, unconditional connection. Lily's mother, still clutching her daughter tightly, looked up at Emily, her eyes filled with boundless gratitude. You saved my child." Emily stood, extending a hand. Emily Carter. It was nothing, really. Anyone would have done the same. The woman grasped Emily's hand with both of hers, squeezing it with intensity. Catherine Bennett. And no, Emily, not everyone would have done what you did. You're an angel. How can I ever thank you? Emily felt a blush creep up her neck. Knowing that Lily is safe is thanks enough, believe me. Catherine didn't seem convinced. Her eyes took in Emily's appearance, noting the wrinkled blazer and the exhaustion etched on her face. "You look like you were on your way to something important. Oh, God, we messed up your day, didn't we?" For a second, Emily considered downplaying it, saying it was nothing, that her commitments could be easily rescheduled. But something inside her, perhaps the same impulse that made her leap from her car, compelled her to be honest. "Actually," Emily began, her voice trembling slightly, "I was on my way to a very important meeting, one that probably would have led to a major promotion." Catherine's face paled. "Oh, no, Emily. You missed it because of us?" Emily looked at Lily, who was now happily inspecting the colorful bandage on her knee, completely oblivious to the adult drama unfolding. "You know what? Looking at Lily now, seeing her safe and happy, I don't regret it for a second." The words came out before she could stop them, but once they were spoken, Emily realized they were profoundly true. Yes, she had sacrificed an incredible professional opportunity. Yes, years of work seemed to have vanished. But in that moment, seeing the gratitude in Catherine's eyes and the innocence in Lily's smile, Emily felt she had gained something far more valuable. Catherine, with tears now streaming down her face, suddenly pulled Emily into a hug. "You're an incredible person, Emily Carter. The world needs more people like you." As she returned the embrace, Emily felt something shift within her, a sense of purpose that she had never experienced in her career. She didn't know what the future held, how she would explain this to her colleagues, or what her next move would be, but for the first time in a long, long time, she felt she was exactly where she was meant to be. When Catherine finally pulled away, she took a business card from her purse. "Please, call me. I insist on doing something to properly thank you." Emily accepted the card more out of politeness than anything else. But when her eyes fell on the printed name, she felt the floor drop out from under her. Catherine Bennett, owner and editor-in-chief, the Gotham Gazette. Emily's world spun. Of all the people in all the places, she had saved the daughter of her boss, the very woman she had indirectly stood up at the most important meeting of her career. As Catherine and Lily said their goodbyes, promising to keep in touch, Emily stood frozen, the business card feeling as heavy as lead in her hand. The day that had begun with the promise of a major promotion, then turned into a professional nightmare, had just taken another, even more unbelievable turn. And Emily Carter, the journalist who had always known exactly what she wanted and how to get it, was suddenly adrift in completely uncharted territory, with no idea what the future held in store. The cafe around the corner from the hospital was nearly empty at that hour of the morning. Emily Carter stirred her cappuccino absently, while Catherine Bennett sat across from her, Lily now dozing peacefully in her mother's lap. The silence between them was thick, charged with unspoken words and the weight of imminent revelations. Emily took a deep, fortifying breath. "Ms. Bennett, "Catherine, please," the older woman interrupted with a gentle smile. "Catherine," Emily corrected herself, "I think I owe you a full explanation about what happened this morning." Catherine nodded, her eyes fixed on Emily with an intensity that made the journalist feel as if she were under a microscope. I was on my way to work, Emily began, her voice still a little shaky. It was an important day for me. After 12 years at the Gotham Gazette, I was about to be promoted to Deputy Editor-in-Chief. Catherine's eyes widened slightly, but she remained silent, letting Emily continue. The meeting was at 9 tie. I was early. Everything was perfect. And then? Emily glanced at the sleeping Lily. I saw your daughter. The car speeding. I couldn't just stand by. Emily paused, swallowing hard. I missed the meeting. I probably missed the promotion, but looking at Lily now, I know I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, her fingers gently stroking Lily's hair. When she finally spoke, her voice was laden with emotion. Emily, you gave up something you'd worked over a decade for to save my daughter's life. There aren't enough words to express my gratitude. Emily offered a sad smile. It's what any decent person would do. No, Catherine said firmly, not everyone would have done that. You're special, Emily Carter. There was a pause before Catherine continued, her tone shifting to something more formal. Now, about the Gotham Gazette. Emily felt her heart begin to race. This was the moment she had been dreading since seeing Catherine's card. I assume you had no idea who I was when you saved Lily? Catherine said, a slight smile playing on her lips. Emily shook her head. I had no idea. It wasn't until I saw your card. Catherine nodded. Well, I think it's time we put all our cards on the table. Emily, I'm not just the owner of the Gotham Gazette. I'm the editor-in-chief. Emily's world seemed to tilt on its axis again. The editor-in-chief? How had she never seen her before? How did she not recognize the woman at the absolute pinnacle of the newspaper she had dedicated her life to? Sensing Emily's confusion, Catherine explained, I keep a low profile. I prefer to let the newspaper speak for itself without the weight of a public face. But today? Well, today's circumstances forced me out of the shadows. Emily struggled to form a response. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, Catherine replied. First, I want you to know that I'm aware of this morning's meeting. Richard told me about your absence. Emily's heart sank. This was it, the end of her career at the Gazette. But Catherine continued. What Richard didn't know, what no one knew, was that I planned to attend that meeting, to watch, to assess, to see who truly deserved the promotion. Emily blinked, bewildered. But I wasn't there. No, Catherine agreed. You weren't. You were doing something infinitely more important. A moment of charged silence hung between them as Emily tried to process the information. A wave of relief, confusion, and a fragile flicker of hope washed over her. Catherine leaned forward, her voice low and intense. Emily, in all my years in journalism, I've learned that a person's character isn't measured by the awards they receive or the headlines they write. It's measured by the choices they make when no one is watching, or when they think no one is watching. Emily felt tears threatening to spill, but she held them back. You made a choice today, Catherine continued, a choice that shows exactly what kind of person and what kind of journalist you are. And that's precisely the kind of person I want leading the Gotham Gazette in the future. Emily could scarcely believe what she was hearing. You mean? Catherine smiled. I want you to come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have much to discuss about your future at the newspaper. At that moment, Lily stirred, her blue eyes blinking open, groggy with sleep. She looked at Emily and smiled. Hi, superhero, she murmured. Emily couldn't help but laugh, the tension of the last few hours finally melting away. Catherine hugged her daughter, her eyes meeting Emily's over Lily's head. A mutual understanding passed between them, a connection that transcended the boundaries of employer and employee. You know, Catherine said softly, Lily's always wanted a big sister, someone to look up to follow in their footsteps. A warmth spread through Emily's chest. Well, I've always wanted a little sister to protect and inspire. The three of them shared a smile, and in that instant, Emily knew her life had irrevocably changed. Not just her career, but her entire world had expanded in ways she could never have imagined when she woke up that morning. As they said their goodbyes in the hospital parking lot, Catherine held Emily's hand a moment longer. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late." Emily nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. Not even if the world is ending. Watching Catherine and Lily walk away, Emily felt a jumble of emotions she could barely comprehend. There was fear of the unknown, yes, but also an exhilarating sense of excitement, a feeling that she was on the verge of something truly extraordinary. As she drove home, Emily reflected on the surreal roller coaster events of the day. From nearly losing everything to potentially gaining more than she had ever dreamed, all because of a single, split-second act of courage and kindness. She didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a very long time, Emily Carter was eager to find out. The future, once so meticulously planned and predictable, now lay before her like a blank page, ready to be filled with stories yet untold. And as the sun began to set over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Emily felt a growing certainty deep inside her. Whatever challenges the Gotham Gazette and Catherine Bennett had in store for her, she was ready. Ready to write the next chapter of her life, a story that promised to be more exciting and rewarding than any she had ever reported on its pages. The Gotham Gazette building loomed tall against the morning sky, its glass windows reflecting the rising sun like a beacon of possibilities. Dressed in her best suit, Emily Carter took a deep breath before stepping through the revolving doors. The familiar lobby, once a place of comfort and routine, now felt charged with an electric sense of expectation and uncertainty. As the elevator ascended to the top floor, Emily reflected on the last 24 hours. The adrenaline of rescuing Lily, the devastation of missing the meeting, and then the stunning turn of events with Catherine Bennett. It all felt like a fever dream, too wild even for the Gazette's front page. The elevator doors opened onto a hallway Emily had never visited before. Gilded nameplates adorned the doors, indicating the offices of upper management. At the end of the hall, a larger sign stood out. Catherine Bennett, Editor-in-Chief. Emily straightened her blazer, took one more steadying breath, and knocked on the door. "Come in," came Catherine's familiar voice from inside. The office was spacious, yet surprisingly cozy. Large windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled an entire wall. Catherine sat behind a massive mahogany desk, a warm smile on her face. "Emily, welcome. Please, have a seat." Emily did as she was told, her hands trembling slightly as she settled into the plush leather chair. Catherine observed her for a moment before speaking. "Before we begin, I want you to know Emily hasn't stopped talking about her superhero since yesterday." Emily felt her cheeks warm. "She's an adorable child." "Yes, she is," Catherine agreed, her gaze softening. Then, straightening up in her chair, she adopted a more professional demeanor. "But we're here to talk about you, Emily, and the future of the Gotham Gazette." Emily nodded, feeling the tension tighten in her stomach. "I'll get straight to the point," Catherine began. "I'm offering you the position of Editor-in-Chief of the Gotham Gazette." The world seemed to stop for an instant. Emily blinked, certain she had misheard. "I'm sorry, did you say—" "Editor-in-Chief?" Catherine smiled. "Exactly. Not Deputy Editor-in-Chief, full Editor-in-Chief." Emily felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room. "But what about you?" "I'm stepping away from the day-to-day management," Catherine explained. "I'll remain as owner and on the board, but it's time for new blood, a new vision to lead the Gazette into the future." Emily's mind spun. This was more, far more than she had ever dared to dream. "Catherine, I don't know what to say. It's an incredible honor, but you're wondering if you're ready," Catherine finished for her. Emily nodded, grateful for the understanding. Catherine got up, walking over to the window. "Emily, journalism is at a crossroads. Social media, fake news, public distrust. We need leaders who not only understand the profession, but who possess an unwavering sense of ethics and compassion. She turned to face Emily. Yesterday, you showed you have both in abundance. You sacrificed a professional opportunity to save a life. That's exactly the kind of judgment and integrity I want leading this newspaper. A warmth spread through Emily, a powerful mix of pride and determination. What's your vision for the Gazette, Catherine? Catherine's eyes lit up with passion. I want us to be more than just a newspaper. I want us to be a beacon of truth in a world full of misinformation. I want us to tell the stories that need to be told, give a voice to the voiceless, hold the powerful accountable. Emily leaned forward, absorbing every word. But more than that, Catherine continued, I want us to inspire change, so that our stories not only inform, but motivate people to act, to care, to make a difference in their communities. Like I did with Lily, Emily murmured in understanding. Exactly, Catherine smiled. Every story we publish can be someone's Lily moment, a chance to make a difference, to change a life. Emily felt a wave of excitement build within her. It was a bold, ambitious vision, but it was the kind of journalism she had always dreamed of practicing. And what would my role be in all this? Emily asked, her voice now steady with newfound resolve. Catherine returned to her chair, leaning over the desk. You would be the guardian of this vision, Emily. You'd lead our team, guide our coverage, ensure we maintain our ethical standards while adapting to an ever-changing media landscape. Emily nodded slowly, the enormity of the challenge settling in. It won't be easy. No, Catherine agreed. There will be resistance, both internally and externally. You'll have to make tough decisions, balance journalistic integrity with commercial realities. But I believe you have what it takes. For a moment, silence reigned in the office. Emily looked out the window at the city sprawling below, the city whose stories she would now be responsible for telling. Finally, she turned to Catherine, a new, steely determination shining in her eyes. I accept. Catherine's smile was radiant. Welcome aboard, Editor-in-Chief Carter. The two women stood, shaking hands firmly. I won't let you down, Catherine, Emily promised. I know you won't, Catherine replied. Now, how about we meet your new team? As they left the office, Emily felt a mix of emotions. Fear, yes, but also an electrifying excitement. She was about to embark on the biggest story of her life, the story of how she would transform the Gotham Gazette, and perhaps journalism itself. And as she walked through the familiar corridors of the newspaper, now seen through new eyes, Emily Carter knew she was exactly where she needed to be, ready to face any challenge, tell any story, and make a difference, one word at a time. The buzz in the Gotham Gazette newsroom gradually quieted as Emily Carter walked through the glass doors, followed closely by Catherine Bennett. Curious glances and barely concealed whispers followed them to the central desk where the morning editorial meetings usually took place. Catherine cleared her throat, calling for everyone's attention. Listen up, everyone. I have an important announcement to make. The silence that followed was almost palpable. Emily felt the weight of dozens of gazes on her, a mix of curiosity, apprehension, and, in some cases, clear hostility. As many of you know, I'm stepping away from the day-to-day management of the Gazette, Catherine continued. And I'm pleased to announce that Emily Carter will be our new editor-in-chief. Shock was visible on the faces around them. Emily saw Richard, her former boss, visibly pale. Others looked confused, while some younger journalists smiled in approval. I know this is an unexpected change, Emily began, her voice steady despite her internal nerves. But I'm committed to taking the Gazette to new heights, maintaining the integrity and quality that have always defined us. The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions, rapid-fire meetings, and furtive looks. Emily could sense the tension in the air, especially from some of the older editors who had clearly expected to be considered for the role. By the end of the day, exhausted but determined, Emily closed herself in her new office to plan the next steps. She knew she had to move quickly to establish her authority and vision. The next morning, Emily called a general meeting. The conference room was packed, the atmosphere thick with anticipation and apprehension. "Good morning, everyone," Emily began, her voice clear and confident. "I know my appointment was a surprise to many of you, but I'm here because I believe in the power of journalism to change lives and communities." She paused, looking around the room. "Starting today, we'll be making some changes to our editorial structure." A murmur rippled through the room. Emily continued, undeterred. "We'll be creating multidisciplinary teams, combining investigative reporters with data experts and digital content producers. Our goal is to produce deeper, more impactful stories that are also more accessible to today's audience." Richard, sitting at the back of the room, crossed his arms in clear skepticism. "And how exactly is that going to work, Emily? Sounds like a recipe for chaos." Emily smiled, having anticipated this question. "Good question, Richard. Each team will have a project leader responsible for coordinating efforts and ensuring we maintain our journalistic standards. In addition, we'll implement a peer review system to guarantee the quality and accuracy of our reporting." She noticed a few nods of approval among the younger journalists. Encouraged, Emily went on to detail her ideas for modernizing the workflow, incorporating more data analysis, and expanding the Gazette's digital presence. By the end of the presentation, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. There was still skepticism, but also a spark of excitement, especially among the younger team members. In the weeks that followed, Emily worked tirelessly to implement her changes. There was resistance, of course. Richard and some other senior editors constantly questioned her decisions, sometimes openly, sometimes through whispered comments and passive-aggressive emails. But Emily stood firm. She knew change was necessary if the Gazette wanted to survive and thrive in the ever-evolving media landscape. A month after her appointment, Emily led her first major editorial meeting as editor-in-chief. The room was full, the anticipation palpable. "All right, everyone," Emily began, her confidence growing every day. "What do we have for today?" Ideas began to flow. Emily listened carefully, asking incisive questions, challenging reporters to dig deeper, to consider the broader implications of their stories. Then Chloe, a young reporter Emily had recently promoted, raised her hand timidly. "Yes, Chloe," Emily encouraged. I have an idea for a bigger project," Chloe began, gaining confidence as she spoke. "I've been investigating a pattern of disparities in law enforcement in lower-income neighborhoods. I think there's a much bigger story here, something that could really make a difference." Emily leaned forward, intrigued. "Go on." Chloe outlined her proposal. A comprehensive investigative series on systemic inequalities in criminal justice, combining data analysis, on-the-ground reporting, and powerful personal stories. When Chloe finished, there was a moment of silence. Emily could see the spark in some reporters' eyes, contrasting with the obvious skepticism in others. Richard was the first to speak. "It's an ambitious project, no doubt. Maybe too ambitious. The resources needed, the time." "It's exactly the kind of journalism we should be doing," Emily interrupted, her voice firm. She turned to Chloe. "Excellent work, Chloe. I want you to lead this project." Chloe's eyes widened in surprise and excitement. Emily continued, addressing the entire room. "This is the kind of reporting that can truly make a difference. Let's assemble a dedicated team for it. I want data analysis, in-depth reporting, and multimedia production. We'll tell this story in a way that can't be ignored." The energy in the room shifted perceptibly. Even the skeptics seemed intrigued by the challenge. "This will demand a lot from all of us," Emily concluded. "But that's why we became journalists, isn't it? To tell the stories that need telling, to give voice to the voiceless." When the meeting ended, Emily could feel a new energy pulsing through the newsroom. There would be challenges ahead, of course, budgets to balance, egos to manage, deadlines to meet. But for the first time since taking the position, Emily felt truly in command. As she walked back to her office, Emily paused for a moment, taking in the newsroom's buzz. Reporters talking excitedly, designers sketching layouts, the constant click of keyboards. It was the sound of journalism alive, vibrant, ready to make a difference. And Emily Carter was at the center of it all, ready to lead the Gotham Gazette into a new era. With a determined smile, Emily went back to work. The real challenge was only beginning, but she was more than ready to face it. Emily Carter's office buzzed with electric energy the morning after that pivotal editorial meeting. She had assembled a select team to bring Chloe's ambitious investigative project to life. Around the conference table, eager and determined faces looked at her, waiting for direction. "Good morning, everyone," Emily began, her tone a blend of authority and enthusiasm. "We're about to embark on a journey that could change lives, and who knows, our entire city. It won't be easy, but I believe we have the right team to make it happen." She paused, looking at each member of the team. Chloe, the young reporter whose pitch had started it all, looked both nervous and determined. Next to her sat Joe, a veteran investigative journalist known for his tenacity. Then there was Abigail, a brilliant data analyst, and Tyler, a talented multimedia producer. "Chloe," Emily said, turning to the young reporter, "you'll be the leader of this project. Your vision and passion brought us here, and I trust you to guide us forward." Chloe's eyes widened in surprise, but she nodded firmly. "I won't let you down, Emily." "Joe, your experience is crucial," Emily continued. "I want you to mentor Chloe and the team in the nuances of long-term investigative reporting." The veteran journalist grinned, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "It'll be a pleasure, Chief." Emily went on, outlining each member's responsibilities and setting initial deadlines. As the meeting progressed, she could feel the energy in the room building. This wasn't just another project. It was a mission. When the meeting ended and the team left, excited and full of purpose, Emily noticed Chloe lingering at the door. "Is something wrong, Chloe?" Emily asked gently. Chloe turned, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty on her face. "I just wanted to thank you for trusting me. I know I'm new at this, and—" Emily smiled, remembering her own insecurities at the start of her career. "Chloe, you have the instinct and passion needed for this job. The rest you'll learn along the way. I'm here to support you." A moment of understanding passed between them. What had once been a subtle rivalry, the ambitious newcomer, the established journalist, was turning into something else. Mentorship, mutual respect, and, Emily realized, the beginnings of a friendship. "How about we grab a coffee after work?" Emily suggested. "We can discuss the project more, and maybe other things as well." Chloe's face lit up. "I'd love that." As the days passed, Emily found herself increasingly immersed in the frenetic pace of her new position. Endless meetings, crucial decisions, the constant pressure to keep the Gazette relevant and profitable. But amid the chaos, she discovered an unexpected oasis of calm in her conversations with Chloe. Their after-work coffee sessions became an almost daily ritual. Of course, they discussed the project, but they also shared personal stories, aspirations, and fears. Through Chloe's enthusiastic eyes, Emily revisited her own journey, rekindling her passion for journalism. It was during one of those conversations that Emily's phone rang. It was Catherine Bennett. "Emily, sorry to bother you after hours, but Lily's begging to visit the newsroom. Would you mind if we drop by tomorrow?" Emily smiled, remembering the little girl who had inadvertently changed the course of her life. "Of course not. It'll be a pleasure to have you." The next day, the usual hum of the newsroom was interrupted by an excited, childlike voice. "Look, Mommy, is this where they make the news?" Emily stepped out of her office to find Lily, eyes wide with wonder, tugging Catherine's hand as she pointed at everything and everyone. "Welcome to the Gotham Gazette, Lily," Emily said, kneeling down to the girl's eye level. "Emily," Lily shouted, throwing herself into an impromptu hug. "Are you still a superhero here?" Emily laughed, feeling Catherine's affectionate gaze on them. "Well, around here, we all try to be a bit like heroes, telling important stories that can help people." Lily's eyes sparkled. "Can I be a hero too?" "Of course you can," Emily replied, an idea forming in her mind. How about you be our special reporter for the day? You can ask everyone questions and then tell me what you found out." Lily nodded enthusiastically, immediately running off to the nearest reporter with a, "Why did you choose to be a journalist?" As Lily zigzagged through the newsroom, leaving smiles in her wake, Emily and Catherine watched with fondness. "She's been asking a lot about you," Catherine commented softly. "I think you've earned a lifelong fan." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. "She's an incredible little girl, Catherine. You both changed my life in ways I never imagined." Catherine smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Sometimes I wonder if I give her enough attention with all the demands of the newspaper." Emily placed a reassuring hand on Catherine's shoulder. "Hey, you're doing a great job. Lily is proof of that." Just then, Lily came running back, bursting with excitement. Emily, I learned so many things. Can I write a story about my visit?" Emily exchanged a conspiratorial look with Catherine before turning to Lily. "That would be wonderful. How about being our junior columnist for a day?" Lily's shriek of joy echoed through the newsroom, bringing smiles even to the grumpiest journalists. Later that evening, after Lily and Catherine had left and the newsroom had nearly emptied, Emily found herself reflecting on the day. Lily's visit had brought a light and energy that had long been missing in the often cynical world of daily journalism. Looking at the pile of work on her desk, financial reports, editorial proposals, the ever-present flood of emails, Emily felt a wave of exhaustion. Balancing her new responsibilities with any semblance of a personal life seemed a Herculean task. But then her eyes fell on a drawing Lily had left behind, a stick figure in a cape holding what looked like a newspaper. Underneath, in clumsy child's handwriting, were the words, "Emily, the news superhero." Emily smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, balance was hard. Yes, the challenges were immense. But if her actions could inspire even one child to believe in the power of journalism, in the power of truth, then every sacrifice was worth it. With a determined sigh, Emily returned to work. The investigative project was just getting started, and there was a whole world out there waiting to be changed, one story at a time. The clock on the conference room wall read 11:45 p.m. when Emily Carter finally leaned back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes. Around her, the equally exhausted but determined faces of her investigative team reflected the same mix of fatigue and excitement. Chloe, now firmly established as the project leader, stood in front of a whiteboard covered with names, dates, and scribbled connections. "It can't be a coincidence," she said, her voice trembling with contained excitement. "All these contract grants, all leading back to the same group of companies. And look at this," she pointed to a series of financial transactions highlighted in red. Joe, the veteran journalist, nodded slowly, his eyes clouded with a mix of admiration and concern. "We're talking about large-scale corruption here, involving some of the most powerful names in the city." Emily felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just another story. It was the kind of investigation that could shake the foundations of power in the city. And with big revelations came big risks. "Okay, everyone," Emily said, her voice calm but firm. "Before we take the next step, we need to be absolutely sure of every detail. Abigail," she turned to the data analyst, "I want you to review every number, every transaction. If there's even a fraction of doubt, we investigate further." Abigail nodded, her fingers already flying across her laptop keyboard. "Joe, Chloe," Emily continued, "you two will lead the interviews with our sources. Remember, ethics above all else. We don't promise anything we can't deliver, we don't manipulate information, and we always protect our sources." The two journalists exchanged determined looks, Emily's confidence bolstering their own resolve. "Tyler," Emily addressed the multimedia producer, "I want you to start thinking about how we'll present this visually. Graphs, infographics, maybe even a video documentary. We need to make this story accessible and impactful for the general public." As the team dispersed, each with clearly defined tasks, Emily felt a mix of pride and apprehension. They were on the brink of something big, something that could define their careers and maybe even change the city. But the road ahead was far from easy. Over the following weeks, the investigation gained momentum. Chloe and Joe spent entire days on the streets, interviewing sources and following leads. Abigail practically lived in the data room, uncovering hidden connections in mountains of financial records. Tyler worked tirelessly, turning complex information into clear, impactful visuals. Meanwhile, Emily divided her time between guiding the team and managing the growing external pressures. Rumors about the investigation began to spread, and soon she faced cryptic phone calls and friendly advice from powerful figures in the city. One particularly tense afternoon, Emily received an unexpected visit in her office. It was the mayor, his affable smile barely masking the tension in his eyes. "Emily, my dear," he began, his voice syrupy. "I've heard you and your team are working on something sensitive. I hope you're being careful. You know how things can be easily misconstrued." Emily kept her face impassive, years of journalistic experience serving her well at that moment. "Mayor Davies, I appreciate your concern. Rest assured, the Gotham Gazette always strives for the highest accuracy and integrity in our reporting." The mayor's smile faltered for a moment. Of course. I just thought I'd drop by to remind you that, well, certain stories can have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved." When the mayor finally left, Emily felt the weight of his words lingering in the air. The veiled threat was clear, but it only reinforced her determination. That night, Emily called an emergency meeting with her team in a closed conference room. With the blinds drawn, she recounted what had happened. "Listen up," she said, her voice low and intense. "Things are going to get tougher from here on out. There will be pressure, maybe even threats. If anyone wants out of the project now, I'll understand completely." A tense silence followed. Then Chloe stood, her eyes shining with determination. "I haven't come this far to quit now. I'm in, no matter what." One by one, the other team members voiced their commitment. Joe, in his grisly voice, captured everyone's sentiment. "This is why we became journalists, right? To tell the truth, no matter who it bothers." Emily felt a wave of pride and gratitude. "All right then. From now on, security is our top priority. No one works alone, all communications are encrypted, and if anyone feels they're being followed or threatened, you let me know immediately." In the following weeks, the pressure only mounted. Advertisers began voicing concerns about their relationships with the paper. Formerly reliable sources suddenly went silent. Emily even noticed a suspicious car parked outside her apartment for several nights in a row. But instead of backing down, Emily and her team only intensified their efforts. They worked long hours, often sleeping at the office. Emily made a point of always being present, leading by example, and offering support whenever needed. One night, as they reviewed a new batch of documents, Chloe looked at Emily with a mix of admiration and concern. "How do you do it, Emily? With all this pressure, all these threats? Aren't you scared?" Emily paused, considering the question. "Of course I'm scared, Chloe. But you know what scares me more? The idea of staying silent when I know something wrong is happening. The fear of letting down people like you, like our team, who've trusted me to lead. And most of all, the fear of failing the public, who counts on us to tell the truth." She paused, a gentle smile forming on her lips. "Besides, I have a little fan who sees me as a superhero. I can't let her down, can I?" Chloe laughed, the tension in the room easing slightly. "Lily really made an impact on you, huh?" "More than she'll ever know," Emily answered softly. At that moment, as if on cue, Abigail's computer let out an urgent beep. Everyone turned to her, expectant. Abigail looked at the screen, her eyes widening. "Guys, I think we just found the missing piece. You won't believe this." As the team gathered around Abigail's computer, Emily felt a rush of adrenaline. They were about to cross a point of no return. Whatever they found now, there would be no going back. With one last look at her dedicated team, Emily made her decision. Whatever truth they were about to uncover, they would tell it, no matter the cost, no matter the consequence. Because in the end, that was what it meant to be a journalist. That was what it meant to be a guardian of the truth. "Let's see it," Emily said, her voice resolute. "Show us what you found, Abigail. It's time to tell this story." The buzz in the Gotham Gazette newsroom was almost tangible. Reporters whispered in corners, editors exchanged meaningful glances, and at the center of it all stood Emily Carter, her stance firm despite the storm of emotion swirling inside her. The first part of the investigative series had been published the previous morning, and the impact was immediate and seismic. The revelations of systemic corruption involving some of the city's most powerful names had exploded like a bomb in the political and business scene. Emily watched with a mix of pride and apprehension as the newsroom's TV screens showed continuous coverage of the story. National news channels had picked it up, extending its reach far beyond the city limits. "Emily," Chloe's voice cut through the noise. "I just got a call from a producer at CNN. They want a live interview tonight." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "Great work, Chloe. Prepare thoroughly. Stick to the facts we've verified. And remember, integrity above all," Chloe finished with a confident smile. As Chloe walked away to prepare, Emily felt her phone vibrate. It was a message from an unknown number. "You have no idea whose nest you've stirred. Back off now, or the consequences will be severe." A chill ran down Emily's spine, but she quickly composed herself. She knew threats like these would come. It was the price of challenging the status quo. That afternoon, Emily was surprised by an unexpected visitor in her office. Catherine Bennett walked in, her face a mask of worry. "Emily, we need to talk," Catherine began, closing the door behind her. "This investigation, it's getting dangerous." Emily straightened in her chair, ready to defend their work. "Catherine, I know the risks are high, but—" "Let me finish," Catherine interrupted gently. "I am worried, yes, as your friend and as the owner of this newspaper. But I'm also incredibly proud of the work you and your team are doing." Emily felt a knot in her throat loosen. "So you support us?" Catherine smiled, though concern was still evident in her eyes. "Absolutely. I just want to make sure you're taking every necessary precaution. This story is bigger than any of us imagined." The two women spent the next hour discussing additional security measures for the team and their sources. When Catherine finally stood to leave, she paused at the door. "Oh, and Emily, Lily saw you on TV last night. She said her favorite superhero is saving the city again." Emily couldn't hold back a smile, feeling a renewed wave of determination. If a child could see the importance of what they were doing, then they were on the right track. The days that followed were a roller coaster of emotions and discoveries. The team worked tirelessly, following every lead, verifying and re-verifying every fact. Emily led by example, often being the first to arrive and the last to leave. One late night, Joe burst into Emily's office, his eyes shining with a mix of shock and excitement. "Emily, you need to see this," he panted, dropping a stack of documents on her desk. "Remember that politician who seemed clean? Well, he isn't." Emily leaned over the papers, her heart racing as she absorbed the information. What they had here wasn't just another piece of the puzzle, it was a revelation that changed the entire outlook of the investigation. This changes everything," Emily murmured, her mind already racing through the implications. "Joe, gather the team. We need to rethink our approach." In the hours that followed, the conference room became a whirlwind of activity. Whiteboards were filled and erased, connections drawn and redrawn. The story they thought they were telling suddenly expanded into something much bigger and far darker. "It's like a web," Chloe observed, her voice a mix of awe and horror. "Every thread we pull reveals more connections, more corruption." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility more than ever. "And it's our job to untangle that web, no matter where it leads." As the night stretched into the early morning, the team finally began to see the big picture. What started as an investigation into local corruption had turned into something much bigger, a network of influence and power extending to the highest levels of state and federal government. Emily looked around at her exhausted yet determined team, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. They were about to shake not just the city, but potentially the entire country. "People," Emily said, her voice calm but charged with emotion. "What we have here is explosive. The ramifications, they're huge. We have to be more careful than ever." She paused, meeting the eyes of each team member. "From now on, things will get even tougher. There will be more pressure, more threats. If anyone wants to back out, this is the time." The silence that followed was broken by Chloe, who stood up, determination blazing in her eyes. "I didn't come this far to give up now. I'm in to the end." One by one, the others echoed her commitment. Joe, in his gruff voice, summed up everyone's feelings. "Emily, we've spent our lives dreaming of a story like this, a chance to really make a difference. We're not backing down now." Emily felt a wave of emotion pass through her. This team, these incredible people, were willing to risk everything for the truth. It was a powerful reminder of why she'd become a journalist in the first place. "All right then," Emily said, squaring her shoulders. "Let's do this right. For the truth, for justice, and for all the people who trust us to tell this story." As the rising sun began to light the conference room, Emily and her team prepared to dive even deeper into the investigation. They knew the challenges ahead would be immense, but they also knew they stood on the brink of something truly historic. And Emily Carter, the journalist who once dreamed of changing the world with her words, was about to do just that. Emily Carter's office was steeped in a tense silence. Stacks of documents, photos, and charts covered every available surface. At the center of it all sat Emily, eyes fixed on her computer screen, rereading the final draft of the series of articles that could change everything. A gentle knock on the door broke her concentration. Chloe walked in, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," Chloe said, placing one mug on Emily's desk. "How's it going?" Emily sighed, rubbing her tired eyes. "Almost there. It's just the magnitude of it all. Sometimes I wonder if we're really ready for the consequences." Chloe nodded sympathetically. "I know. But Emily, what we discovered, the public has a right to know." "You're right," Emily agreed, straightening up in her chair. "Let's gather the team. It's time to finalize this." In the conference room, the atmosphere was electric. Joe, the veteran journalist, stood before a whiteboard crammed with names and connections. Abigail, the data analyst, typed furiously on her laptop, making final tweaks to the graphics that would accompany the report. "All right, everyone," Emily began, her voice firm despite her nervousness. "We're in the home stretch. I want us to go through every detail one more time. We can't leave any opening for disputes." The next hours were a whirlwind of heated discussions, meticulous fact-checking, and painstaking editing. Every word, every comma was examined and re-examined. By the time they finished, it was well past midnight. Emily looked at her team, exhausted but steadfast. "You've done incredible work," she said, emotion coloring her voice. "What we have here isn't just a series of articles. It's a call to action, a cry for justice." Joe, usually so stoic, had tears in his eyes. "In 30 years of reporting, I've never seen anything like this, Emily. This is going to shake the foundations of power in this city, in this country." The mood of celebration, however, was interrupted when Richard, the executive editor, entered the room, his face tense with worry. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. "The board is nervous. They want an emergency meeting, first thing in the morning, before we approve publication." Emily felt her stomach sink. She knew this moment would come, but had hoped for more time. "All right," she responded, keeping her voice steady. "I'll be there." As the team dispersed, each carrying the weight of what they'd uncovered and what was coming, Emily remained in the conference room. She knew the next 24 hours would be crucial. The next morning, Emily walked into the boardroom with her head held high, carrying not just the physical evidence of months of investigation, but also the weight of journalistic responsibility. The board members were already there, their faces a mix of apprehension and skepticism. Catherine Bennett, seated at the head of the table, offered Emily an encouraging smile. Emily, one of the board members, began, his voice laden with worry. "We understand the importance of this investigation, but the implications, the risks to the newspaper." Emily took a deep breath, bracing herself for what she knew would be the most important battle of her career. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice calm but resolute, "I understand your concerns. Believe me, I share them. But what we have here goes beyond financial risks or legal threats. This is about the very essence of journalism." She opened the folder she was carrying, spreading documents and photos across the table. "What we've uncovered isn't just local corruption. It's a network of influence and power reaching the highest levels of government. People in positions of trust, betraying the public they swore to serve. If we don't tell this story, who will?" A murmur ran through the room. Emily continued, her voice gaining strength. "When each of us got into this business, we made a promise to the public to seek the truth, to be the voice of the voiceless. Today we have a chance to fulfill that promise in a way few journalists ever do." She paused, looking into the eyes of each board member. "Yes, there will be consequences. Yes, we'll face threats and possibly lawsuits. But let me ask you, what price do we place on the truth? How much do we value journalistic integrity?" The silence that followed was palpable. Catherine was the first to break it. "Emily is right," she said, her voice firm. "We didn't build this newspaper to hide from the truth, but to reveal it, no matter the cost." The other board members exchanged glances, some nodding slowly. "What if we get sued?" one of them asked. "Then we fight," Emily answered, without hesitation. "Every fact in this report has been checked and rechecked. We have sources, documents, irrefutable evidence. If they take us to court, we'll use it as a platform to expose even more truth." The discussion went on for hours. Arguments were presented, scenarios considered. Emily stood her ground, answering every concern with facts and conviction. Finally, Catherine stood up. "I think it's time we make a decision," she said, looking around the table. "All in favor of publishing the complete series, raise your hand." Emily held her breath. One by one, hands went up. When the last hand rose, Emily felt a wave of relief and resolve wash over her. "It's decided then," Catherine declared. "We publish tomorrow." As Emily left the boardroom, exhausted but triumphant, she found her team waiting anxiously in the hallway. "Well?" Chloe asked, her voice barely containing her anxiety. Emily allowed herself a smile. "Get ready, everyone. Tomorrow, we change the world." The newsroom erupted in applause and cheers. Emily felt the weight of the past months lift, replaced by a steely determination. As the team prepared for the biggest publication of their lives, Emily knew the real challenge was just beginning. But looking at the determined faces around her, she also knew they were ready. The Gotham Gazette was about to make history, and Emily Carter was at the forefront, prepared to weather any storm that came. The sun had barely risen when Emily Carter arrived at the Gotham Gazette newsroom. The air was charged with expectation and tension. Today was the day. The series of reports that had consumed months of their lives was about to be unleashed on the world. Emily watched the first editions roll off the press, the smell of fresh ink filling the air. The headlines screamed in bold letters, "Rampant corruption, the web of power that controls our city." Below it, photos of prominent politicians and influential business people, all implicated in the investigation. "This is it," Emily murmured to herself, holding the paper with slightly trembling hands. There's no turning back now. The following hours were a whirlwind. As the sun climbed higher, news of the report spread like a shockwave through the city. Phones rang incessantly in the newsroom. Social media exploded with reactions. TV channels cut their regular programming to cover the story. Around noon, Emily watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension as the mayor made an emergency statement on TV, vehemently denying the accusations and promising to sue the paper for defamation. "They can try to intimidate us," Emily told her assembled team, "but the truth is on our side. Every word in that report is backed by solid evidence. The legal threats were quick to materialize." By the end of the day, the Gotham Gazette had received subpoenas from several politicians and business people mentioned in the report. Catherine Bennett called an emergency meeting with the paper's legal team. "We were prepared for this," she said, her voice calm but determined. "We'll face each lawsuit head-on. We won't back down." Meanwhile, Emily found herself at the center of a media maelstrom. Interview requests poured in from everywhere: local papers, national networks, even international outlets. Her phone didn't stop ringing. "Emily," Chloe called, holding up a phone, "it's CNN again. They want you on the evening show." Emily hesitated for a moment. The sudden exposure was overwhelming, but she knew it was necessary. "Tell them I'll do it," she replied, squaring her shoulders. In the weeks that followed, the city and the country reeled from the revelations. Protests erupted, demanding the resignation of implicated politicians. Official investigations were launched. The FBI announced it was getting involved. Despite the threats and pressure, public support for the Gotham Gazette was overwhelming. Ordinary citizens called or stopped by the newsroom to express their gratitude. The paper's circulation soared. On the streets, Emily was often stopped by strangers wanting to shake her hand or take a photo. "You've become a symbol," Joe commented one day, watching her handle yet another admirer graciously. "A symbol of journalistic integrity." Emily smiled, but she felt the weight of that responsibility. "We're just doing our jobs, Joe. Telling the truth." One Saturday, about a month after the initial publication, Emily got an unexpected visit at her apartment. It was Catherine, accompanied by a very excited Lily. "Sorry to show up unannounced," Catherine said, but Lily wouldn't stop talking about seeing her superhero again. Emily knelt to Lily's eye level. "Hello, Lily. How are you?" The girl's eyes sparkled with admiration. "You're amazing, Emily. Everyone at my school is talking about you in the newspaper. My teacher even used your reports in class." Emily felt a surge of emotion. Seeing the impact of her work reflected in a child's eyes was profoundly moving. "Lily has a question for you," Catherine said softly. The girl suddenly looked shy. I wanted to know how I can be like you when I grow up." Emily felt a lump in her throat. "Oh, Lily," she began carefully. "Being a journalist is about so much more than writing stories. It's about the courage to seek the truth, even when it's hard. It's about caring deeply for people and wanting to make the world a better place." Lily listened intently, absorbing every word. "But you know what?" Emily continued. "You don't have to wait until you grow up to start making a difference. You can start now, by being curious, asking questions, and standing up for what's right." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? I can?" "Absolutely," Emily smiled. "In fact, how about being my special assistant for a day at the newsroom? You can see up close how we do our work." Lily's squeal of delight echoed through the apartment. Later, after Catherine and Lily left, Emily reflected on their visit. In the chaos of the last few weeks, the lawsuits, the threats, the constant pressure, it was easy to lose sight of the real impact of her work. But seeing the admiration in Lily's eyes, knowing she was inspiring the next generation, rekindled Emily's passion and purpose. The next morning, Emily arrived at the newsroom with renewed vigor. The headlines still blared about the fallout of her reports. Politicians were resigning, companies under investigation, the social fabric of the city being reconfigured. Chloe met her at the door, holding the latest edition of the paper. "Have you seen this? They're calling us the Guardians of Truth." Emily took the paper, a smile forming on her lips. "Guardians of Truth, huh? I like it." As she walked to her office, Emily was greeted by her team. There was a gleam of pride in their eyes, a shared sense of achievement. "Everyone," Emily called, gathering them around her. What we've achieved here is extraordinary, but our work is far from over. There are more truths to uncover, more stories to tell." She paused, meeting each person's gaze. "The world is watching now. Let's show them the true power of journalism." A murmur of agreement spread through the room. Emily felt a wave of gratitude for these amazing people who had risked everything for the truth. Heading off to yet another interview, another day of defending her work and facing the consequences, Emily thought of Lily, of all the Lilies in the world who deserved a better, fairer future. And in that moment, Emily Carter knew with absolute certainty, no matter how hard things got, she would keep fighting. For the truth, for justice, and for the transformative power of journalism. The Gotham Gazette had changed the game, and this was only the beginning. Emily Carter's office at the Gotham Gazette had become the epicenter of frenetic activity. Months after publishing the series of articles that rocked the city's power structures, the impact still reverberated. Stacks of readers' letters covered her desk, most expressing gratitude and support. On the wall, a board displayed newspaper clippings documenting the fallout, politicians resigning, businesses under investigation, new transparency laws being proposed. Emily gazed out the window at the street below, where a small crowd gathered daily, waiting to pick up the latest edition of the Gazette. The paper's circulation had soared, surpassing even the most optimistic forecasts. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. Catherine Bennett stood there, a proud smile on her face. "Emily, have you seen the latest numbers?" Catherine asked, handing her a report. "It's not just circulation. Our digital influence has quadrupled. The Gazette is becoming a national reference for investigative journalism." Emily smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "It's the result of everyone's hard work, Catherine. Every person in this newsroom contributed." "Well, it's your leadership guiding the way," Catherine replied. "By the way, the Pulitzer Committee reached out. They want to discuss your nomination for next year." Emily's eyes went wide. The Pulitzer was every journalist's dream, the pinnacle of professional recognition. Before she could answer, however, Chloe burst into the office, her face pale and tense. "Emily, Catherine, we have a problem," Chloe said, her voice trembling. "It's about last week's follow-up report on the money laundering scheme." Emily felt her stomach clench. "What about it?" Chloe hesitated, casting a worried glance at Catherine before continuing. "I was reviewing some sources for our next piece when I noticed discrepancies. I decided to double-check the data from the previous report and, well, some of the information doesn't match." "What do you mean, doesn't match?" Catherine asked, her voice sharp. "Some of the numbers were altered," Chloe replied, swallowing hard. "Exaggerated to make the case look worse than it already was." The silence that followed was heavy with terrible implications. Emily felt as though the floor had vanished beneath her feet. "Who was responsible for that part of the report?" Emily asked, though she feared she already knew. "Ethan," Chloe answered, confirming Emily's worst fears. "He led the data analysis team for that piece. Ethan, one of the Gazette's most respected editors, known for his meticulousness and impeccable ethics. The thought that he might have manipulated information was almost inconceivable." "Are we sure?" Catherine asked, a mix of shock and anger in her voice. Chloe nodded sadly. "I triple-checked everything. There's no doubt." Emily stood abruptly, suddenly feeling claustrophobic. This could destroy everything we've worked for. If this gets out, our credibility will be completely ruined," Catherine finished grimly. The next minutes were a whirlwind of emotions and chaotic thoughts. Emily felt as if she were in freefall, all the triumphs of the past months crumbling around her. "We need to speak to Ethan immediately," Emily finally said, her voice firm despite the turmoil inside. "Chloe, please ask him to come here now. And don't mention this to anyone else." When Ethan entered the office minutes later, the air was thick with tension. Emily studied the man she considered both mentor and friend, searching his face for any sign of guilt or remorse. "Ethan," Emily began, keeping her voice calm, "we need to discuss last week's money laundering report." The color drained from Ethan's face. For a moment, Emily saw panic flash in his eyes, quickly replaced by a mask of confusion. "Sure. What about it?" Emily glanced at Catherine before continuing. "We found some discrepancies in the data, numbers that were altered, exaggerated." Ethan remained silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, his shoulders slumped and he covered his face with his hands. I'm so sorry," he murmured. "I never intended. It was just supposed to be a small adjustment." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily felt a mix of disappointment, anger, and, surprisingly, compassion. "Why, Ethan?" she asked softly. Ethan looked up, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "The story was good, but I was afraid it wouldn't be impactful enough. After everything we achieved, I wanted to make sure we kept making a difference. I made a terrible mistake." Emily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the situation. Here was the nightmare every journalist dreaded: what to do when the pursuit of truth is compromised from within. "Ethan, you understand what this means, right?" Catherine asked, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "You jeopardized everything we fought for." Ethan nodded miserably. "I know. I'll accept whatever consequences come." Emily stood, walking to the window. Outside, life went on, people coming and going, trusting the Gazette to bring them the truth. She turned to face the room. "We can't hide this," she said resolutely. "If we do, we'll be no better than those we exposed." Catherine nodded slowly. "I agree. But how do we handle this without destroying everything we've built?" Emily took a deep breath. "We'll be transparent. We'll publish a full correction explaining exactly what happened and what measures we'll take to ensure it never happens again." Ethan raised his head, surprised. "You're not going to fire me?" "Oh, you'll be suspended, Ethan," Emily responded, her voice firm but not without compassion. "But we'll also give you the chance to explain your actions to the public. Total transparency." "It's risky," Catherine agreed, "but it's the right thing to do. We'll show that even when we make mistakes, we stand by the truth above all else." In the hours that followed, Emily worked tirelessly with her team to prepare the correction. Every word was carefully chosen, balancing brutal honesty with a renewed commitment to journalistic integrity. When she finally finished writing, Emily checked the clock. It was nearing midnight. Tomorrow they would publish the correction and face the consequences. It would be one of the hardest days of her career. But as she reread the text one last time, Emily felt a wave of determination. Yes, they had stumbled. But by facing the error head-on, by choosing truth even when it hurt, they were reaffirming everything the Gazette stood for. Emily knew the days ahead would be a trial by fire. There would be criticism, doubt, maybe even calls for her resignation. But she was ready to weather the storm. Because in the end, Emily Carter knew the true measure of a journalist and a newspaper was not just in the stories they told, but in how they handled their own mistakes and failures. And tomorrow, the Gotham Gazette would show the world that even in its darkest moments, the light of truth still shone bright. Early the next morning, Emily Carter walked through the doors of the Gotham Gazette. The building was almost empty, except for a few cleaning staff and night editors finishing their shifts. Emily preferred it that way. The silence gave her space to think, to investigate. Sitting in her office, Emily began meticulously reviewing every aspect of the story in question. She pored over emails, notes, and drafts, trying to understand exactly how and when the data had been tampered with. As the hours passed, a pattern began to emerge. Around noon, Chloe knocked softly on the door. "Emily, I found something you should see." Chloe entered carrying a folder. "I've been going through the system logs. It looks like Ethan made changes to the final data late at night, just hours before publication." Emily felt her heart sink. The evidence was clear, but she still struggled to believe that Ethan, a journalist she so deeply respected, could have done this. "Thank you, Chloe," Emily said, her voice weary. "Please ask Ethan to come to my office." Minutes later, Ethan entered, his face a mask of professional calm. But Emily, who had known him for years, could see the tension in his eyes. "Ethan," Emily began, keeping her voice neutral, "we need to talk about the money laundering article." "Sure," Ethan replied, taking a seat. "Is there a problem?" Emily watched him closely. "We discovered discrepancies in the data, last-minute changes. Do you know anything about that?" For a moment, a flicker of panic crossed Ethan's face, swiftly replaced by a look of confusion. "Discrepancies? No, I don't know anything. Maybe a typing error?" Emily felt a pang of disappointment. She had hoped Ethan would be honest from the start. "Ethan, we have the system logs. We know you made changes the night before publication." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan looked at his hands, then back at Emily, remorse filling his eyes. I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't mean... It was supposed to be just a small tweak." Emily closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of his confession. When she opened them, her voice was firm, but tinged with compassion. "Why, Ethan? Why risk everything we fought for?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking older. "The story was good, but I was afraid it wouldn't be impactful enough. After everything we accomplished, I wanted to make sure we kept making a difference. I made a terrible mistake." Emily slowly nodded, absorbing his words. "Ethan, you understand what this means, don't you? You put the credibility of the entire paper at risk." "I know," Ethan whispered, "and I'll accept whatever consequences come." Emily stood and walked over to the window. Outside, the city carried on, unknowing of the drama unfolding within the Gazette's walls. Turning back to Ethan, she said, "I'll have to discuss this with Catherine. Please wait at home. We'll be in touch soon." After Ethan left, Emily called an urgent meeting with Catherine. The two women spent hours debating how to proceed. "We could deal with this internally," Catherine suggested quietly. "Fire Ethan. Fix the numbers without drawing attention." Emily shook her head. "No, Catherine. If we do that, we'll betray everything we stand for. We need to be transparent." "But the risk to the paper?" Catherine began. "That's exactly why we have to do it," Emily interrupted. "We've shown the world that even when we make mistakes, we choose the truth. It's the only way to keep our integrity." After hours of discussion, they reached a consensus. Emily spent the night drafting an editorial, choosing every word carefully. The next morning, the Gotham Gazette published its retraction on the front page. Emily's editorial was direct and honest. "Dear readers, it is with deep regret that we inform you we have made a mistake in our recent report on money laundering. Some data was improperly altered, exaggerating the scale of the scheme. This manipulation was carried out by one of our senior editors, acting alone and without the knowledge or approval of management. At the Gotham Gazette, we have always prided ourselves on our integrity and commitment to the truth. This incident is a grave breach of those principles. We are deeply ashamed and offer our sincere apologies to you, our readers. In response, we are taking the following measures. The editor responsible has been suspended from his duties. We are conducting a full audit of all our recent reports. We have implemented new verification protocols to prevent this from happening again. We understand that this error may shake your trust in us. We ask only for the opportunity to earn it back. We will continue to seek the truth, expose injustices, and serve our community, now with even greater vigilance. Your trust is our most precious asset. We will do everything in our power to deserve it every day. Sincerely, Emily Carter, Editor-in-Chief. The reactions were immediate and intense. On social media, opinions were divided. Many praised the Gazette's honesty, seeing it as a courageous act of transparency. Others expressed skepticism, questioning whether they could trust the paper again. Rival newspapers wasted no time in attacking, some even calling for Emily's resignation. Yet, to her surprise, several respected journalists publicly defended her, praising her courage in facing the mistake head-on. In the midst of the storm, Emily received an unexpected message. It was from Lily, the little girl whose life she had saved months ago. "Emily," Mom explained what happened. "She said you did the right thing, even though it was hard. You're still my superhero." Reading the message, Emily felt tears well up. The road ahead would be tough, but she knew they had done the right thing. The Gotham Gazette would emerge from this crisis stronger, more vigilant, and more committed than ever to the truth. And Emily Carter was ready to lead the way, one step at a time. The morning sun flooded the Gotham Gazette newsroom, illuminating determined faces and computer screens teeming with developing stories. Emily Carter watched the scene from her office doorway, a gentle smile on her lips. 6 months had passed since the crisis that almost destroyed everything they had fought for, and the transformation was palpable. New posters hung on the walls detailing the rigorous verification protocols Emily had implemented. Every fact, every figure, every quote underwent a meticulous triple check before publication. What initially felt burdensome soon became an integral part of the paper's culture. "Emily," Chloe's voice broke her thoughts. "The new interns have arrived for the mentorship program." Emily nodded, feeling a surge of excitement. The mentorship program for young journalists was her newest and dearest project. "All right then, let's go. Time to shape the future of journalism." In the conference room, Emily found herself facing a dozen young, eager faces. Their eyes shone with the same passion she remembered feeling at the start of her own career. "Welcome to the Gotham Gazette," Emily began, her voice warm but firm. "You're here not just to learn about journalism, but to understand the immense responsibility that comes with this craft. Integrity isn't just a pretty word to us, it's the foundation of everything we do." Over the next few weeks, Emily spent countless hours on the mentorship program, sharing not only techniques and skills, but also the hard lessons she had learned along the way. The impact of the changes at the Gazette did not go unnoticed. Gradually but steadily, public trust was restored. Sales climbed again, surpassing even pre-crisis numbers. Most importantly, the Gazette became a beacon of ethical journalism, with other news outlets seeking guidance on implementing similar practices. One sunny autumn afternoon, Catherine walked into Emily's office, holding an envelope. "Guess who just got nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in Public Service?" Catherine announced, her eyes shining with pride. Emily blinked, stunned. "Us? After everything?" Catherine nodded, smiling. "Not despite everything, Emily. Because of everything. The committee specifically cited our transparency during the crisis and the subsequent reforms as an example of ethical leadership in journalism." The tears Emily had been holding back for months finally spilled over. It was the validation that all the sacrifices, all the sleepless nights, all the tough decisions had been worth it. Weeks later, on a stage in New York, Emily accepted the prestigious award. Scanning the audience, she saw familiar faces. Her team, Catherine, and even Lily and her mother. "This award," Emily said at the microphone, "is not just a celebration of our work. It's a reminder of the power and responsibility we hold as journalists. It's a call to be better, more ethical, more courageous in our pursuit of the truth." Emily's speech resonated far beyond that room. In the following weeks, she received an invitation she never could have imagined, to lead a global initiative on journalism ethics, working with news outlets worldwide to raise professional standards. On a quiet evening, Emily found herself on the Gazette's rooftop terrace with Catherine and Lily, gazing at the city they had helped transform. "You know, they're using your stories in college ethics classes now," Catherine commented, smiling. Emily shook her head, still marveling at the impact of her work. "Sometimes I still can't believe it all." Lily, now a bit older and even more curious, tugged at Emily's sleeve. "So, are you really going to travel the world teaching other journalists?" Emily knelt to the girl's eye level. "Yes, I am, but you know what? No matter where I go, I'll always remember the day I met a brave little girl who changed my life." Lily smiled, her eyes shining. And I'll always remember that my favorite superhero uses a pen instead of a cape." The three laughed, their joy echoing into the night. Later, alone in her office, Emily picked up a framed photo from her desk. It was of her, months ago, saving Lily from that near accident. Gazing at the image, Emily reflected on how a single moment of courage had triggered a chain of events that transformed not just her life, but the lives of countless others. She thought of all the stories they had told, all the injustices exposed, all the lives impacted. She thought of the young journalists she was mentoring, the renewed trust of the public, and the chance to shape the future of journalism on a global scale. Placing the photo back on her desk, Emily smiled serenely. The path hadn't been easy, and she knew new challenges would inevitably arise. But now, more than ever, she was ready to face them. Because Emily Carter had learned the most important lesson of all. True courage isn't about never falling, but about rising stronger and more determined every time. And as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Emily knew this wasn't the end of her journey. It was only the start of a new and exciting chapter.